Welcome back, Caniacs. It's been a long time. Brad is here. Ray is joining me, and we're bringing you season 2 of the Storm Cellar. Welcome back, Ray. Long time no see, friend.
Oh, indeed, Brad. It's good to talk to you again. It feels like, the off seasons are always so long. You want the hockey back as quickly as it leaves. And, oddly enough, this was a shorter one than normal, it seemed like a shorter off season because there was so much activity. You always felt like, for me, there was so much going on. It felt like we weren't really out of the season. Things were going and shaking. This organization's been amazing, and I'm loving this. So it's been too long since we've had a chance to talk about it, but we're going to catch up right now.
For all of our listeners, Ray and I started this podcast because we truly honestly believe hockey should be for everyone. And very quickly, it's popped up on Twitter kind of time and time again. I think the people who follow us on Twitter understand, but I just want to say it for the show. Ray can interject as he sees fit. We're here to talk about the Hurricanes. We're here to talk about the Caniacs, and that's going to include Tony DeAngelo. And we have to separate Tony DeAngelo's performance as a hockey player from Tony DeAngelo, the person. And I just want to make it clear to our audience, Ray is nodding his head. I'm sure he feels the same way. Tony could have the Norris Trophy season of a lifetime. If he doesn't grow up as a person, we're out on him.
Yeah.
Right. So as we talk about Tony as a player, that does not mean we condone, and especially doesn't mean we've forgotten the type of person he has shown himself to be before joining the Hurricanes. We both have faith in Rod Brind'Amour. So we are both putting our trust in Rod Brind'Amour. So we're not giving Tony a chance. We're giving Rod a chance that he can do something with Tony to make Tony a better person. We're not going to belabor the point, week in and week out. We just wanted to make it really clear, I think, for everybody. The signing of Tony, has caused a division. The fan base puts us and all other Caniacs in an uncomfortable position. I feel like
very uncomfortable.
And we just want to know, the fact that we may say Tony had a great game does not mean we've forgotten person has shown himself to be prior to joining the team. Ray and I wanted to do an off-season podcast. We both have been so busy, it just wasn't possible. But, there were like the messages going back and forth, like, oh, did you see this? Did you see this? I got to jump right into maybe the biggest story of at least the end of the off-season. And I'm gonna kill his name, but KK. Gasperi, yes. Kokanami. I know I said that wrong.
Kotkaniemi.
Yes. Yeah. KK or JK. Yeah, I'm a North Carolina boy. I'm never going to get that right. Sorry, Gasperi.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm sure he's used to it, but that he's making a name for himself. He made his name for himself through the whole contract offer, which was to Montreal. I couldn't believe it was happening. It was so wonderful, and the fact that he got signed was even better. It was even better. I loved every part of this whole situation.
I am not usually a petty person, Ray, but I enjoyed everything about the offer. I enjoyed interacting with Montreal fans. I enjoyed the $20 signing bonus.
The $20 signing bonus.
I enjoyed everything about that. That was as petty as it could be, and I absolutely adored it.
No question. It made sweeter by the fact that it's a team that I despise beyond description. Usually I go by saying the team that shall not be named. That's usually how I do it. But in this case, letting Montreal know that we got Kotkaniemi. It was fantastic, and what was even better was the saltiness. How they lose a talent like him, and they immediately, all of the fans that you could see that say, he's really not. We don't need him, and congratulations, you took him off our hands. He was wasn't even a solid part of the team, and blah blah. And you keep telling yourself.
Yeah, that might have been the best part. It went from you guys are trash for making the offer, meaning they wanted, they like him and they want to keep him, to the Habs. There's no way they're signing that deal. We knew we were getting him, I think, almost from day one.
Yeah.
To he was on his way out. He's a bust. It's like he was drafted behind, I believe, a certain Mr. Svechnikov.
Yes.
Who has done very well in Carolina, folks.
Very well for himself. And to have him come to this organization who have, again, and I've mentioned this in the past, have a connection with Finnish players. It's almost like he's coming to the national team. You put him out there with Aho and Teravainen. I mean, these things are just fantastic. I love the idea of having him aboard, and he is going to thrive in this lineup, and he makes this team so much deeper. I'm very excited to see what he can do. And he, even in that very first game, in the very first game, he was a threat out there. He was doing some great things. And, I loved it. Loved the signing, loved everything about it. Amazing.
That signing reminded me of a quote from I think it was an article in The Athletic, and Brendan Moore said, it used to be we had to go call guys to come play in Carolina. And now guys are calling us because they want to be a part of what we're building. And I feel like JK is one of those guys who is, when he got that offer sheet, not only was that a lot of money, I mean, of course he signed it, like it's a ton of cash. But even if it wasn't, at least, I'm a homer, but he's going, oh, those guys are close because Montreal, I mean, they certainly had a heck of an impressive run, the end of last season, but are they going to repeat that performance? I don't know. Is Carolina going to, repeat that performance? They certainly should be a contender. They're certainly a team to watch.
Well, and they will be a team to watch thanks to very much the resigning of Rod himself, Jack Adams Trophy winner. Congratulations to Mr. Brindamore, the coach who clearly showed his value. And it's funny that you mentioned he's the one that says, now Carolina is a location that people want to come to. Part of that is because he is the coach. And there is something about Rod Brindamore in how he runs the team, the expectation that he has of the players is no more than what he ever expected of himself. He's in the gym with these guys, working as hard as they are. Everything about Rod's, it speaks to leadership. It speaks to a fine-tuned organization that is very, very well run from top to bottom. And again, they're going to just develop something, a cohesiveness that players around the league who are running out on contracts are going to be saying, you know what, Carolina, there's something there. They have a good time. They are a well-coached team. They are talented, and they have a chance to win every year. Re-signing Rod was a huge part of that. Huge.
Absolutely. I think not just the on-ice product that we're seeing now, it's the fans. The Caniacs are known for being hardcore. There may not be as many of us as there are Rangers fans or Leafs fans, but the core that we have is a good group. Golf, a couple of days ago, Harry Styles is in town. I'm not a fan. It's not my kind of music, but I could see on Twitter like things erupted. And I guarantee you that fan base has grown a little bit for having those guys, these folks who want to come in and hang out with the Hurricanes. And it that's a pop culture kind of thing, but I think it's going to grow the fan base. And as the fan base grows, the more players want to come here. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think Rod is the key to that. I mean, Rod is like you said, he's the core. Without Rod and his staff, I don't know what we do, because you hit the nail on the head in saying that he's the first guy in, he's the last guy out. He's in the training room with the guys. They can see that he doesn't expect too much from them. He's a player's coach, but he's not a pushover. And that's a delicate balance, I think, in any pro sport. When athletes are making 7, 8, 9 million a year, they're the ones scoring the goals to earn their respect and keep their respect and keep them happy. And it's something that Rod seems to just be able to do naturally. It's a really amazing instinct that he has.
There's seeing him as a head coach, it just seemed to make sense. If you were to go back while he was still on the ice, still playing, still everything, and you were to say, what do you see in Rod Brindamore's future when he's no longer on the ice as a player? And you instantly think of coach because of the leadership that he brings, the type of person that he was. I mean, he is a leader by example, and he just amazing. And what I love is, this team has been really great in sending behind the scenes videos and stuff like that of Rod talking to his team in every situation and so forth, whether it be moments in practice, in the locker room after games and stuff like that, just seeing how he interacts and getting a chance to see what goes on behind the scenes. You just know, man, oh man, these guys will run through and skate through, skate through walls for Rod Brindamore. And that's where the success will be.
And I don't, well, since we're on Rod, I'm going to segue into, kind of the next thing, which is Rod is not a one-hit wonder. He's not taking a group of that's already together and he's showing up and just putting the icing on the cake. The core is intact, the team, Aho, yep. Svechnikov, Teravainen, Niederreiter, Martinook, these guys are still there. And Stahl, I don't want to freak anybody out. If I leave out Stahl,
I mean, you could go on and on. Yeah, right. 100%.
But we lose Hamilton, right? We pick up KK last minute. We bring in some other guys. All those moving cogs, there's a lot of new pieces. It's a complete goalie switch. 2 goalies gone, 2 new guys in. That's not something you typically see every year. So Rod is able to get that new group and get them tuned in. And, that first night, I mean, they were in midseason form.
They were. They absolutely, they dismantled the Islanders for honestly, there was 10-minute swings where it didn't look like the Islanders had ever touched the puck. They just didn't seem like the domination of the forwards, and they just keeps turning the team out, turning the lines over, keep them going, keep them pressure. It was great. Now, look, the Islanders had moments too where they showed their grit, their determination. Barry Trotz doesn't let them just take a night off, and they certainly wanted to spoil the party on opening night in Raleigh, which again, hey, my personal message to Caniacs who are all in the stands, not only I'm jealous, but I'm very proud. I love watching what you guys do and how fired up you are. And that energy from the fans transfers into the team. And Rod knows how to get the most out of all of these guys who, again, it feels like a brand new team, a much deeper forward line, a whole new defensive pair in the back end with Cole and Ethan Bear. And they looked, like you said, mid-season form. There are so many good things about the opening night and so many things where you could see Rod's influence throughout the lineup. It was terrific. Very excited to see the opening game. You betcha.
It looked great. So speaking of Cole and Bear, there was maybe a 45-second shift, maybe a minute there in period 3. Ethan Bear, he kept the puck in the zone all by himself 3 or 4 times in a row. I mean, it looked like he was the only guy out there on wheels. And that just makes it so 3 players to watch. If there are 3 people to really key on that you need to key in on that are going to make a big impact this season, new or old, I want to know your 3. My number 1 is Ethan Bear. My 3 aren't going to be in order, but just Ethan's one of those guys who he had a sophomore slump in Edmonton. There were some off-ice issues. He comes to Carolina. He gets kind of a new lease, a new look, a clean slate, if you will. And so far, I thought he's looked fantastic. They had him with Slavin some in the preseason. He looked solid. You put him with Ian Cole. He looked very good. And he was skating circles around the Islanders. And some of those exit passes out of the zone, which you and I talked about extensively, were problematic last playoffs.
Yeah.
He makes look easy. I'm loving it.
He did make it look easy. He looked much different than the Ethan Bear that from last season in Edmonton, who struggled, like you said, sophomore slump. Those things can happen. And it's very funny. We talked earlier about Kotkaniemi and the fans who are saying, good riddance. He's kind of gone. We don't need it. He wasn't all that good. I heard the same thing about Ethan Bear. There were fans from Edmonton who are saying, he could barely crack the lineup. Our defense stinks. And he was, could barely hold his own in the lineup that stinks. How is he going to fit in Raleigh and in with North Carolina? The Hurricanes don't have a problem on D. Our defense, one of the best things about the Hurricanes, how in the world is he going to crack that lineup? Well, we got an example in the preseason where he scored a hat trick in a red and white game. Like you,
Yeah.
he's got the talent to put the puck in the net, and there's when you mentioned it very, very well, where he seemed like the only guy on the ice for that 45 seconds where he was doing all of the work and stuff like that. He's making smart plays, pinching when he needs to, playing responsibly, like stepping back when he needs to, and moving the puck. I mean, he had opportunities, takeaways, he had shots on net, picked up a secondary assist as well. What more do you want out of your third pairing? And he's on the third pairing, but that
But he's
doesn't
not
mean
a
that
third
he
pairing
can't.
guy.
He's not a third pairing guy. He
Yeah.
absolutely isn't. I mean, he is just um I think, and again, going back to Rod, you could tell his efforts and stuff. He's connected with Rod, and Coach Brindamore is driving him in the right direction, where he will get and extract the best out of Ethan Bear. And I know we're going to see great things from him all season long. I was very, very excited to have him join the Hurricanes.
Same.
Very excited. Oh man.
All right.
So good.
Give me the first of your three. Who are you
Jeez,
looking
you know
at?
what? I mean, if I had to pick one standout above all, for me, it was Svechnikov, for the reason that he struggled a little bit in the playoffs and last season as well, taking penalties, untimely penalties and stuff, and sometimes just not being in his game. And the Hurricanes re-signed him to a long-term contract and so forth. And you normally see when you're up for a new contract, you see the elevation of play go sky high, because he's trying to raise his value so that when it's time for him to go sit down for a contract, he gets the most money that he can get. Understandable. That's how anyone and every player plays. And then once they get signed, you sometimes see that little dip. I got what I wanted. I can ease off a little bit. I can take it back. I've got the security of this brand new humongous contract. And so they dip a little bit. We did not see that in Svechnikov in game one. For crying out loud, he almost succeeded with the lacrosse goal again. I mean, he had two goals and he was flying on the ice, dominating. He was definitely someone to watch. I could see him doing some amazing things. And, given the opportunity, he could be up near the top in the points totals this season. That's what I see for him.
Well, Svech is my boy. He's my favorite player. And, in relation to points, not to jinx it, but he is on pace for 164 goals. Just saying. Just throwing that out there.
You love it when they put that much effort in game one, right? We can see some big things for him. I'd love to see it.
I do. I think you hit the nail on the head. Sophomore slumps or post-contract slumps happen to people. And I wasn't too worried about that with Svechnikov, because if you remember in the playoffs, his point production was only down about 0.06 points per game versus the previous year. It wasn't down as much as people thought. It just wasn't sexy. And it was assists and not goals. But he was also the guy after, an OT game in Nashville, is out there shooting pucks on the net after the game, working on his game, getting his hands right, trying to loosen up a little bit.
Yep.
That is a mature, very, a young but mature young man who I think knows what he wants. And I don't think he's there yet. And if he gets to that level where I think he expects himself to be, oh boy, that's going to look awesome.
It's going to look great. It's going to be very, very exciting to see. If I'm going to jump to my second pick, this is going to be a strange one for me, because I'm going to our goaltenders, specifically Frederick Anderson. And he's a player to watch for me, more for me getting used to his style of play, and not not the other way around. There's in game one, one of the things that I just wasn't used to was the humongous rebounds he was giving up that seemed like extra opportunities for the Islanders. And what I started watching and closing in on as the game was going on is that Anderson, it seems like he's trying to start his own transition. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
counter attack play where he kicks out these huge rebounds towards the boards and stuff, keep it away from the middle of the ice. But it's like he's trying to direct it to our players to move that quick transition and get us racing down for opportunities, maybe get a 3-on-2, 2-on-1, that sort of thing. And so while the rebounds are make me nervous, he's comfortable with them. It's his style of play. We have to get used to it. This is a guy that we have not seen up close in Raleigh. We have to get used to his style of play, and he's someone I'm going to be watching.
I really liked your point when you said that to me. I said, "Oh, I never thought of it that way." So rebound control was one of the things I texted you about during the game. It was like, "Oh
Yeah,
boy," but you're right. I think there's a difference in I'm putting rebounds out there where I want them for a reason versus what we had some in the previous couple of seasons where rebounds are happening that I'm like, I just don't understand why that's a rebound at all. And it's being dumped. They're just kind of bouncing right back in front of the net. If you're kicking them out, they're going out to the boards. That's a low percentage shot. That's a lot safer style of hockey than what I think we've seen. So uh, I think that's a great pick. I'm both of our goaltenders. I've seen them play a handful of times, but it's neither of them are players that I was watching intently for the past few years. Um, I'm really anxious to see what they're capable of doing, but I think you're right. I think if that's just a play style thing, I think a lot of us are going to have to just get used to it, especially those Wolfpack fans out there. You're used to the cardiac canes and the cardiac pack, so you'll be okay.
yeah,
You just
for
got to
sure.
slow
I
down,
mean,
take a deep breath, and let him do his thing.
just a quick reminder, I'll take people back into the time machine to a time where both you and I, one of our favorite goaltenders with the team who we love, Arturs Urbe.
Love
We
Archie.
loved we love Archie. We loved everything about him. He was great to have on a team, wonderful personality, but I wanted to chain him to the crease. I wanted to chain him to between the posts because every time he went out to play the puck, it was there was fear that he was going to turn it over. Sometimes he did, sometimes he did, sometimes he was responsible for the offense that we were creating. You know what I mean? And it was one of those things where his style of play was different, that it made fans a little bit uncomfortable, made you, your heart in your throat sometimes, everything. This is the same sort of situation. We'll have to get used to it, get comfortable with it. And I mean, we're never going to stop cheering. And
Absolutely not.
Anderson is huge. He's massive. He's a very large man, a very large goaltender, and he takes up a lot of space. I mean, he's the diametric opposite of Arturs Urbe. Like both scare us a little bit, but they're both different styles. Things we'll all have to get used to.
Frederick is listed on the Hurricanes webpage as 6'4", 238.
I don't
So
buy that.
so
I think
call
he's
that
taller.
6'5", 250,
Uh,
260, because we all know
he,
that they're lying about that. So
he
he is
is a
massive.
big man. He is a big man, and I could see good things from him, and yeah, he's definitely someone to watch.
I think I think that yeah, that's an unexpected. He wasn't on my list. So you're number three. You know,
Oh, you know, I'm gonna throw you a curveball. I'm gonna throw you a curveball, and it's difficult to talk about, but it was the man that was brought in to take place of Hamilton, and that was Mr. D'Angelo. He is a guy that I'm going to be watching, but for a completely different reason than maybe others. He was brought in to be an offensive threat. He clearly, in my mind, there was a lot of discussion between him and the rest of the team before coming into the fold. He's got a checkered past history, and I know that for a lot of fans, I saw the fact that he joined the team was enough to turn them off. My thought was from the very start is that if he was vetted thoroughly by Rod, had lots of talks with the coach, it was, you're here to produce the offensive skill and points that he was brought into, he made it into the league on in the first place. He made it into the league because he was an offensive threat on D. He needs to put up the points. And yes, everyone's going to be looking at him a little bit different. I'm watching to see him produce. The off ice stuff, I don't like it. I wasn't happy with the idea of the signing, but I thought about it long and hard and said, look, it was well stated. He had his meetings with Rod. If anyone is going to straighten him out and remind him he's got a job to do, and the extracurricular crap can be cancerous in locker rooms, and Rod is not going to put up with that. He's another guy that I'm going to be watching, and I know that changes things up. I want to see him produce, and I want to see him become a part of the team that is not someone who causes friction or turmoil.
There's a lot of people who have no problem with his performance on the ice and his conduct. I am not one of those people. So I'm going to watch Tony maybe in a similar vein to you, but a different way. You know, I mentioned Ethan Bear is my number one. Ethan obviously was the victim of some horrific, racism and abuse in Edmonton on the way out. Folks, I'm taking my guide on this from people like Ethan Bear. Ethan is his teammate. I would hope that the Canes are, and I feel comfortable with Rod Brindamore, if not management, to step in if there's an issue and to keep, Ethan protect. I don't know if that's the right word, but I certainly would hope that if Ethan is, or any other players, because we have Seth Jarvis is also of the Cree Nation. If there is a problem with Tony as a person, I certainly hope that the team, Rod in particular, would root that out and Tony would be gone. So I'm looking at Tony. I don't care if he produces or not. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
If Tony puts up no points, he's not a defensive liability. He's a body on the ice. But Rod can help make him into the type of person that I would be proud to have on the team. Then it's a victory for Tony, for me, for the year. And the only way I know to do that, being on the outside looking in, is the hope that if there are any issues, that we're going to hear from Bear or Jarvis or Stahl or Rod or any of those people.
It absolutely does make sense, and I understand it. I've said this. You hear of put up or shut up. I would like him to put up and shut up, and that's not just production. That is prove it. Like you said, it's enough to talk about it and say you want to change your ways, and he's asking for a second chance. Well, he's on his fifth chance. If you go back into his personal player history and stuff, he's expended all of the opportunities. Cat has 9 lives. He's probably burned all of those lives, and he's on his last one. And my thought is that if again, I go back to him and Rod and the discussions they had before he was signed. If Rod was the guy who said, yeah, I think we can work with him, he's kind of showing me that he's trying to really amend his previous behavior. I mean, who are we to judge about everyone? You, I, everyone have made mistakes in their past, probably not as horrendous as some of his. Let's make that perfectly clear. But you're always looking for an opportunity to recover and become better, a better person. If he can do that here, then great. And if he can do that under Rod Brindamore's tutelage and with guys like Jordan Stahl, again, leader by example, Slavin, all of these guys, solid people that you love to have on your team. The very environment around him, he could take in and change and become a better person.
I agree. In my mind, Tony has not earned another chance.
No.
Tony is getting a chance, if you will, because I believe in Rod Brindamore.
Yeah. Yeah.
If something goes south here, I'm blaming Rod.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know what? That's
Tony hasn't earned this chance on his own.
no.
He's getting an open mind from me because I believe that Rod, sees, like you said, that he can, maybe help Tony realize honestly the issues that people have and what he needs to fix. So I hope on a personal level it works out. If the hockey also works out, great. For us, we're a podcast and we're going to talk about the team. So when Tony plays well, I'm going to say it. Tony had a big hit at the start of the Islanders game tonight. I don't even know who he crushed, but he caught up to, got around, and just bowled somebody down on the Islanders. I don't know who it was. That was an amazing play. He had some really good looks. He skated well. For people listening,
assist as well, correct? Is that?
I'm pretty sure that he did. I'll double check. I'm pretty sure you're right. It's for us as a podcast. If we're complimenting Tony, don't ever forget that Tony, the player on the ice, and Tony, the individual, are being watched by us as two separate. Those are two separate entities, and
absolutely,
he could score 100 points. And if he acts like a dirtbag in the locker room, I don't want him.
No, 100%. And again, I didn't want him on because then you and I wouldn't have to have these types of conversations. You know what I mean? Like, that's really what it comes down to. And it feels like a downer. It feels like whatever, but it's something to watch. And we're recording this before big game tonight back in Nashville, a team that, I'm sure wants a little retribution of their own for what happened to them last year. They got mowed down by the Hurricanes. I say that tongue in cheek because it was certainly not mowing down. They gave the Hurricanes everything they could handle and more. And we came through in that playoff series, and they're back at it again in Nashville tonight. And what do you think? This is going to be, I mean, for me, I think this is going to be a fantastic game. And
my first thought is, can we not go to OT? That's my first. Honestly, my first thought is, can we just one way that can this be resolved in regulation?
Yeah, please, because we had much too much hockey against them in the playoffs. That's for sure. The overtimes were hard on the heart, to be sure. Yeah, you're right. Let's get this one decided in regulation. This is going to be another great contest. Nashville, is it fair to say that Nashville and Carolina now kind of rivals? Is there something there to build on? Maybe it's not something like what the Canes have with Washington, you know what I mean, where there's a real healthy hatred there, but we played so much against Nashville last season in the strange schedule and the way the playoffs went and stuff like that. There's so much of each other that I think all of that friction created last year spills over to this year, doesn't it?
I think so, but at the same time, I'm conflicted, Ray. One of the other podcast hosts that I talked to, he was asking me about the game, and I said, I think there's a rivalry here. I think there's going to be friction. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But I don't hate the Preds with Holla gone. Like, without Holla being there, it feels different. And I know that's just one guy, but there did seem to be something about Holla just really wanting to rub it, in the Canes' noses every shift.
Yeah.
And without him there, it just, if he was there tonight, like, I'd be like, we need to make sure the recording is done, the editing's done, 8:00 puck drop, because something's going to happen. And without him there, I'm expecting a healthy, good competition, but that, there's that little something extra, that little cherry on top is not there. And so I think these two teams are pretty well matched. I think this is going to be a fun series to watch. I'm glad we're not paying them, 58 times in a row.
Yeah,
like we did last season. It felt like, which, with 57 of them going to overtime.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is one of those teams where, North Carolina, Tennessee, there's already a little natural rivalry there. It's two Southern teams. One plays in the East, one plays in the West. I think that's one of those people that you can start to see, it's going to build. If we can get a couple of 4 or 5 good games this season, I do think that rivalry will start to get built, which I think is healthy for the team. I think it's healthy for the fan base. I think it's healthy for the NHL. Like you said, the Capitals, the Bruins, when I think, instant rivals to the Hurricanes, those are the teams that jump out. And I would love to add somebody like Nashville to the mix.
And they're a fun team to watch. I have a soft spot for Nashville. I like their style of play. They're gritty, they're fast, they're tenacious, they're everything that Carolina is, except they're not the Hurricanes. I mean, that, like, to me, like, they just seem like that type of squad. We got a good example in the playoffs last year of what it's like to play against Carolina. Like, that's what they gave to us. That's exactly what other teams get when they face our Hurricanes. And so it's going to be great hockey tonight. And I'm so looking forward to it. And we've probably gone a little bit over long here, so much to discuss at time that I thought I'd just throw this out there. The Hurricanes are already up 1-0. Jesper Fast with the first goal. So Fast, there we go. So we're up 1-0 already. I think that's a little bit strange to talk about tonight's game, and we're already into the game. We've maybe gone over long, but we had a lot to discuss. I think when we're looking at the entirety of this season, you and I here in the Storm Cellar, we're going to be here all season long. We're going to be talking about the developments, the great plays, the things that frustrate us a little bit, off ice opportunity. I mean, off ice events and stuff like that. The social media that Carolina runs is just brilliant beyond. There's so much to talk about all season long. And I think that the people who join us in the Storm Cellar will have a contribution that they can make to us as well, can't they?
I think so. For those of you who are listening, our audience is still fairly small, but we've only recorded 6 episodes. Quite frankly, our audience size compared to the amount of recording and production that we've done is phenomenal. Yeah. We're so happy. We have a lot of folks who follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. And you guys have already heard, we want to hear from you as fans. What makes being a Caniac special? What brought you to the Hurricanes? Particularly if you're like Ray and I, and you're from far away, and maybe you don't live in the Triangle. Maybe you picked up the Hurricanes at an away game, or maybe you did live there and now you live away. But we want to hear from folks. I think we love interacting with people. You can get a recap of the game from a dozen podcasts, right? We started this one because we wanted one that was family friendly. We wanted one that was truly about hockey being for everybody. And for us, it's about being Caniacs. You and I have known each other for 20-something years now, and only spoke for the first time this year. But immediately I felt comfortable saying, hey, do you want to do a podcast? Because we have a connection as Caniacs. So that's really what we're about. If you're listening, you have a cool story to tell. You want to tell us how you became a Caniac, or you have a cool story about a time you met a player, or something that happened in a game. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us on Facebook, facebook.com/StormCellar97. Same thing on Twitter. It's at StormCellar97. You can email us at StormCellar97@gmail. We're easy to get hold of.
We are not hard to find in the Storm Cellar, and there's always room for more Caniacs and jerks alike.
Absolutely.
That's really what it comes down to. We'd love to have you aboard, love to have you listening. And, let's talk hockey.
Let's absolutely.
Let's talk hockey.
So I was going to ask for predictions for tonight, but we're already up 1-0. So
if you want a prediction, look, I'm going to pick the Canes to win in this one. Just to build, though, they played so well against the Islanders, hitting the road, going into Nashville again. I'm going to go with a nice, solid 4-2 victory for the Hurricanes. How do you like that?
4 goals is always a good number.
And I'll give the game winner to Teravainen. Teravainen scores the 3rd goal, which is the game winner, empty netter.
That one's for Laura Wheeler.
There we go. Absolutely, it is for Laura Wheeler. We hope she's listening. Can't wait to talk to her soon because, and she's probably one of the biggest Caniacs that I have ever seen. I love seeing her posts. We were so happy to have her aboard. She lived a fantastic dream in the playoffs last year, and even in Finland. I don't know if you heard. The whole reason why I checked the score is because I heard a cheer. I heard a cheer, and I didn't know where it was coming from. And then I realized it was coming from the Northeast, way Northeast in Finland. Yes, it was her cheering because Jesper Foss scored, and that made me check the scores, and there you go. So we knew the Canes scored the first goal of the game because I could hear it from Finland. Let me tell
Absolutely.
you, she's a huge fan. Loved having her aboard.
And not just Laurel now, but her new guide dog, I think Ruta is the name. And he got to watch
Yes.
his first win. His first
Oh.
win was a Hurricanes victory. So we were 1-0 with them watching.
There we
Um,
go. She has
we
to keep watching.
we already scored one. So I'm going to go with 5 goals for the Canes in regulation. I don't know what the Predators are going to score because it'll be less than 5. But
There
but
you
a,
go.
but a 5 to something win for the Canes in regulation so I can get my kid to bed on time.
Yes,
And then
please.
we will do it all again next week.
Indeed. Brad, it's always fun to record these. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for joining us. Go Canes.
Go Canes. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97. Our podcast is on all major podcast apps, including Apple, Google, and Spotify. Just search for Storm Cellar or find the direct links on our Facebook page. Our intro music is Year of the Exodus by Tech Warrior. You can find them on SoundCloud. Go Canes!